Good morning. Happy Friday, LinkedIn friends, HubSpot family. Here for a fun episode of Let's Build Community Content celebrating 2024 HubSpot creators with Mr. Rob Jones. How you doing, man?
Woo! Feeling very festive today. I really hope that we do some Christmas caroling today because it is the holidays and calls for celebration.
Yes, yes, indeed. I think we'll do that for
You didn't
sure.
laugh either time at that, by the way, because I don't know. You have the best Christmas name ever, and yeah, maybe my jokes just suck now, but um,
Uh, as you might imagine, I've heard that one
yeah,
a
well,
few times.
it's a good
So
one. It is the best one. You have a great name, and anytime I can lean into that. How many times per year, right? You got like 1 month, right, from Thanksgiving to a couple days from now where that works. But yeah, I'll stop derailing us and let you finish the intro.
No, all good. That's basically the intro. No, we're here celebrating the community. It's been an explosive year, in my opinion. Um, like the stuff that HubSpot's been doing for years. Um, just everybody stepping up to the plate, I feel like, in new ways this year to create content in so many places. To just try our best to keep up with HubSpot, educate people inside and outside the ecosystem, and just wanted to take a few minutes today, approximately a little less than an hour now, to just highlight as much as we can in that time.
It's
So,
going to be a tough job. There's a lot of stuff to highlight, but
yes.
I
So
think we're
we are
ready.
going to start with the foundation that we are all building on, and thankfully, you know, uh, HubSpot's not leaving it up to everybody else to create content. Um, so many stories start with HubSpot Academy in terms of people entering the ecosystem. That's Kyle's pedigree as well. And so I just want to start with where they're at because they've also opened the doors for external creators this year. And I'm going to just play this quick video and we're going to see what they've been up to. So very cool to see what's happening there. And just here's a quick list of all the people creating great Academy content. Um,
Shout out Rev Partners.
yes,
Had to get him in
saw,
there.
saw your boy Shadab in there. He's got a great course on life cycle stages. Um, so yeah, a lot of people doing stuff, and HubSpot is helping um, to facilitate a lot of that. Right? They know it can't just be on their shoulders, so we appreciate them. And it's always easier to give recaps when other people are doing recap videos too. Uh,
Yeah.
so did you know this? Like, how did you just realize the scale of this, Rob?
The scale of how many creators there were or videos created this year.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, only because I am now a Academy creator as well. I just haven't published anything yet. They sent out a new format, which is really interesting, especially for people like me who aren't as technical. But it's almost a like short form slash shorts content, the on the go, right? Which has less technical requirements, less length, less depth. It's more of putting. Um, I submitted for I think 11 or 12 different video types, and a lot of them were best practices for getting stuff spun up, like UI extensions for different things, or best practices for Asana integration. So that'll be, I think, more digestible and really help. The goal for me, at least, doing it is pointing people to more of like the RP content. You mentioned Shadab, but like Nikki Sneed is a strategist for us that has stuff. So I think that's a good way to get people in the door and comfortable with creating like longer form content. And it also makes sense to have, if Chris Carolyn does a minute 30 video on this is best practices for whatever it might be, then people will be more likely to go and follow or subscribe to your different channels that you have. So shout out to them for doing it. And that's the only reason I had any idea of the scale and scope was that email correspondence.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad to get to hear you're getting involved. I've been struggling to like I submitted application right when they opened up and I got accepted and I realized and I actually talked to the team like my content not necessarily academy material um which but there's still a place and I think that's they're learning as well, which is always fun to see like the big companies are learning how to figure out or they're learning how to educate the masses in places like social where it's not necessarily a login like to HubSpot Academy and structured and how people are gonna digest it in there. Uh, Knowing that we need to create stuff where the people are in order to educate them and maybe get them into the door. Super important. I think, of course, the OG there from HubSpot side is Mr. Kyle Jepson. And I don't know exactly when he started this HubSpot tips and tricks, um, but a while ago he just started making videos all the time, like short videos. I feel like it was before he was even like the official brand evangelist, and because he was always an important piece of the academy,
Yep.
um, and he's kind of led the way, and that's like as far as like here's other ways that we can educate. Here's other ways to get the information out. Um, and even he has kind of exploded a little bit this year in terms of the different kinds of things that he's been doing. Because we've got HubSpot tips and tricks, we got the daily videos, but he's also started doing the weekly show with Max Cohen.
I
Yeah,
love that graphic, by the way. It's so good.
yes,
Uh, yeah, I mean, for anybody that does not know Kyle directly, he is genuinely the nicest human being I think I've ever met. He's very well intended. He makes time for people, at Inbound. I've talked to him every time I've been. And his role as like chief evangelist was born out of response to the stuff that he was doing at the academy. I think that story could be off here, could be misremembering, but it was like the videos were catching on so fast and there were so many product updates that doing content within the academy, like the longer courses, just didn't make sense anymore if they wanted to grow TAM, like if they wanted to expand. And so, like, smart move by them to put probably, the favorite HubSpot employee, aside maybe from Yamini Dharmesh, as the face of the org. Yeah, ton of value here. You scroll up a little bit because I right here, this public beta, I tagged Cameron Collins, by the way, shout out Sprocket Pod. Said something yesterday about something in beta, and this video I think tributes Cameron for a like workflow property beta that they've pushed out. So that
you can.
I say that to say that's how on top of things he was. That was yesterday. where I tagged him. I was like, hey, did you know this? Let's call Max and Kyle and Nico. I think I tagged. And today, here's the like the video highlighting stuff. That is amazing, right?
That's
Like,
community content right there.
yes. So no better way to show and tell and prove an example of the OG of, who I would say inspired a lot of this, kind of paved the way for a lot of this to happen. But this is what you're showing on your screen right now is a real time example, not even from yesterday. I think it was like last night where I
Yeah,
saw
well,
this.
you posted it 1 hour ago.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, just ridiculously responsive.
right. Yeah, and that's where it's like, everybody starts to pull together. I think for a long time, at least I felt, and maybe I just because I wasn't in it yet, it was Kyle, was out there every day. But he's one dude, and when they hit 800 updates, like in a year, 365 days, one dude doing videos every day, math doesn't work, right? So we were seeing this widening gap of knowledge and everybody, talking about challenges keeping up with HubSpot. Um, so this expansion, this diversification of channels and distribution has been crucial, and seeing him do that, I think it's definitely inspired me in terms of the different ways that you can distribute this information and maybe not think too hard uh, and kind of overanalyze, the best ways to do it versus just getting it out there and starting to share. Because if we don't get it out there in the first place, like you're not like people can't see it and give you the feedback that eventually it helps you improve. Because the other thing he added on um, was the newsletter, right? I think he actually started the live shows with uh, with Max, and then realized the newsletter would be a good way to let people know about the shows ahead of time. So he's been just building this kind of mix, and a huge part of that mix is the HubSpot admins hug, right?
Yes.
And definitely helped me get my start as a creator in the system. January 16th, me and Salim got to come on and talk about like something as exciting as post sales order management, right? A topic that we nobody is talking about it, but we feel like it's super important. Deanna was great about, we're nobodies in the ecosystem at that point. And we got to come on with an audience and really helped me understand, okay, I can do this. I can be a HubSpot creator. And so they uh, every week show up, and my biggest takeaway has been like it's okay not to be perfect, like when you're sharing information about HubSpot, because when you see these and you see product managers in HubSpot or Kyle who's in it every day, they get surprised by what they find in HubSpot as they're going through the demo.
Yep.
It's like, okay, this is daily life HubSpot, right? And that's how you hit a cadence of every week, right? Like this is a huge change from the normal hug format, which is quarterly usually.
Yep.
And you do all this prep and you build all these slides, and right, some of that still happens here, but to hit this cadence, like that was super inspiring to know that it's okay because this is actually HubSpot daily life for everybody. It's very rarely 1, 2, 3, 4 done,
Yep.
right? And this was, so inspiring, and to see that, and continues to inspire, and definitely the most popular, HubSpot user group out there. Uh, so it's kind of to kind of round out Kyle's impact, which continues. He also speaks like all over the country at events.
Yep.
I mean, he has the dream boat job in my opinion. Like he just gets to go and share love about HubSpot, like wherever he's called, and it's a beautiful thing.
I think it's worth noting they hit their 100th hug this year earlier, and Darmesh came and joined. It's fascinating. I've watched it twice. Also, yeah, there we go. best possible, not even foil, but like I would say female version of Kyle, somebody that's massively helpful, supportive, very like energized, is running the admin hug alongside him and has shown up, I think 100, whatever it is, she hasn't missed one, at least through the 100. So I've gotten to work with her a lot, and shout out to, I know that Kyle would give a lot of credit to A, the community, B, to Hubs, everybody, but also to Deanna for showing up. So
Yeah.
shout out Deanna, if you're watching this. Thank you for supporting everybody and the community, and resolving to show up. The other call out, Chris, is like even the workflow beta thing that we were just looking at, like you can assign workflow properties. Do you know how many possible use cases there are for that? If you had to
A
ballpark
lot.
it. So how is Kyle, one person, going to figure that out? Like that is the advantage, and that is the necessity for somebody doing not just quarterly stuff, not just weekly one thing anymore, but like, to your point, almost daily updates to put out there what is new, what exists, so you don't have to stumble across it, in your portal and find out, and then allow the community and people that operate and build different use cases and ways to enact some of this stuff, let them go to work and figure out awesome use cases to deploy these new features.
Yes, indeed. And we love you too, Deanna. Um, yeah, and I think the cool part is seeing, uh, for me, right? So now we can, like, we've set this foundation. This is what we're all building on, the great, foundation that's HubSpot Academy, and Kyle himself. Like, you can tell in a lot of ways he's just barehanded, like, just, we've got to do this, right? Everybody, I probably, like, I can't keep taking all these questions every day. Like, how do we start handling this? He's just done a stellar job of that. And when we start talking about like showing up every day, what I've found is that there have been, I think from an external OG perspective, we've got, like, people like George B. Thomas, um, the HubSpot Hacks channel, right? Has been around. They just hit 25,000 subscribers, 25.5 looks like now. So big milestone there, and congrats to,
Shout out Allie.
yep, congrats to Allie. And she's been here for a while. And what's been cool is seeing how somebody, like, and credit to her for the focus that she's had in building out this YouTube channel, right? Because it's very easy to just start making content all over the place, and then you maybe get some gains, but the impact is probably less. Um, she's done a great job of having a very specific format, for videos. But what we've also seen is that's been the challenge for any on-demand content right now. You risk HubSpot, you risk being out of date like pretty quickly, like as soon
Yep.
as HubSpot changes something. So seeing somebody, like Allie and Tyler and that team start to show up every day with new forms of their content. So they created a LinkedIn newsletter called the Orange Admin, and posting videos and posting and making posts every day. Uh, has been awesome to see a lot of people transition into, okay, how do we match this pace, right, of HubSpot updates? Um, Another one that's been inspiring is Ryan Gunn at, yeah, I don't know exactly when, and this is, right, just this community and this ecosystem, right? It's always something that people highlight different about HubSpot, like, versus everything else, or every other system you've been in. And as I was thinking about becoming a partner last year, uh, Ryan, took a call with me, like, back in August of 23, just to, like, help me get the lay of the land. It's somebody I've been following, to understand these more complex HubSpot use cases. Um, so before I was even, officially a partner, he just had a chat with me, right, and could help me learn a lot, help me understand I was making the right decision to join this ecosystem. And that kind of conversation, right, so I have that, and then I start to see him, like, he went hard on YouTube Shorts, like, basically, at least at the beginning of the year, maybe before the start of the year. And just seeing that, right? Because I was getting notifications on my phone every day, like with a new short, and they were helpful. It was helpful shorts, right? It was quick hits of information, like obviously being able to repurpose all the podcasts in an effective way, uh, was really helpful for me to understand, like, okay, we got several people doing it at this point, right? Um, I don't know. Have you seen, like, think you were in it a little bit before I was. So have you seen a similar kind of expansion or maybe new things happening, like that this year that weren't happening last year?
I've seen it internally at RP where we have made that kind of a priority. Just the larger meta of corporate slash brand accounts not being seen as trustworthy or having, being suppressed, whatever that looks like, however you want to interpret it. I think some of the data is clear that it's easier to grow a following as a person rather than a brand. And so we've leaned into that. Obviously, it looks like A8, Connor, Ryan Gunn, they have a lot of people, Brian Byler over there that are making stuff. And so yes, I've seen both, and I think it's been necessitated out of kind of the way authority, authenticity, and trust are viewed by people. Because this feels more like a dialogue or a response to something than an ad. And so there's even been more of a push to do, um, I would say like enablement, edutainment type of, for me, that edutainment type of stuff, but a lot more of let's figure out what this looks like and how to show you how to get value out of HubSpot. So not only has there been an expansion of content there, but who is making it has changed and upgraded and evolved, and then what the content is about has broadened a ton, right? Like I'm a funny example because a lot of that is geared towards getting more people to just be aware of HubSpot in general. So
Right.
whenever I make something, it's like, who is this moron? They go and click HubSpot and figure. I the other day, some of that content, I would say this too, Chris. Like the third part is just being responsive and having awareness and having like a network that goes to bat for you. The quick story is somebody tagged me sent me a post in a DM, and I went and commented. Little did I know, speaking with that person like a week and a half later, that was an active like deal, and the comment helped to close it for them. So there's that type of like not even content, but like galvanization of your network around the HubSpot community that can help move the needle. That's the most exciting thing to me is just showing up and adding my perspective and 2 cents helped. You know,
Yeah. That's awesome. Congrats on that. Um, because it is like, it's easy to understand how this can be an echo chamber at times as well. And, people outside of the ecosystem can have a very different view. Um, but it's usually until they come in and actually interact. And it's like, oh, this is real. I got this random person
yeah,
giving me value on this post. This is real life. This is a different community, a different ecosystem. And, it helps when, there's so many different types of stakeholders. But once you align on that culture, again, coming from things like the culture code and, Dharmesh and Brian, how they've always presented HubSpot for years, um, is to thanks for that. And so when you come in, it's almost like freeing a little bit. Like, oh, I can be like just openly generous and
yeah,
share value because it's gonna come back in some way. But it feels good, and we see posts like this, like Clement, who's an app partner, right? Uh, Not a solutions partner. It doesn't work for HubSpot. Um, uh, he's done 3 posts this year like this.
Yeah.
right? These are 31 must follow HubSpot experts. Got a great list here. Um, but he also like, I think as I was coming in last year, it was a moment, and this is why there's a shift that has happened in terms of like doing things for the right reasons. I remember people complaining about being tagged like randomly in posts like this,
Yeah.
where it's clear that the only reason the person posting was doing it was to try and get, audience or get exposure, or like wasn't always good intent, right? Um, but when you see it paired with things like this, where it's like this is not just typing up and tagging like whoever you can think of, right? This is actually creating, an asset to go with it. And so props to Clement, you know, for doing this a few times this year. And the real impact is that these people do get followed. Like the whole point of this is like, if you're having trouble keeping up, like follow these people because they're experts. They create content, they participate in the community. And it's starting to be kind of a thing where like anybody who's ends up on this list from Clement specifically, you like start comparing like oh, how many connection requests did you get, based on this post, or how many followers. And I can tell you there's been a growing impact all year. I can see it every time Clement makes this post. There's a little bit of a spike.
Yeah. In
um
the words of Jay Z, if you're having hub problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but my network ain't one. So shout out Jay Z for that bit of wisdom. Yeah, I see this all the time, and there's more of a candid response to your point. It's not just like, oh, damn, I'm tagged in another thing. Let me ignore it, or let me figure out what the angle is here. I just referenced that earlier. I tagged Kyle in something. Today there was a video explaining it. That is massive value, and it's philosophically, I would say that not screaming into the void. So being able to say, asynchronously via social platform, hey, Chris, tagging you in. I don't know how to help with this. Do you have any thoughts? And not only do you or whoever show up, but actually provide value. It's a very gratifying, like communal feeling. Also, I don't know how we got here without referencing this guy, but Carson Kohler, speaking of OGs, that is more of the kind of social media impact. People were doing that. I think two years ago, 2023, the HubSpot like Hall of Fame and Heroes. He had a whole cutout. He solved, answered. I think he's from the community forums. He's what, more than half of those approved solutions. And so people are doing stuff like that now, but in different channels, right? Sprocketeer, LinkedIn primarily. There's more of that like response solutioning. Um, yeah, here we go. Anyway, Carson, I've never met Carson. I did send him a really nice message and a picture of me with his cutout. Um, but it would just be to me almost blaspheme not to give him some props too, because to your point, I think a lot of people have now adopted that solutioning mindset, that selfless, helpful type of mindset within the community, and not crediting at least part of that to him is it would make me feel weird, Chris.
yeah, no, it's another good point. Here he is, always can
Yeah,
find Karsten on the
look at
community
that.
leaderboard. I knew I would. And
That is
yeah,
insane. Look at that,
yeah,
dude. Oh my gosh.
oh, for sure. And that's where I think uh, why we want to highlight all these things. Like this, he's been integral to this foundation that we've been talking about, right? Uh, but we've also seen this shift towards like even HubSpot said it like at inbound, like it's harder and harder for marketers, um, including in this case HubSpot and their own community, to try and bring people in to that space, right? To try and control the journey as much as you'd like to. And you can either kind of dig your heels in and try to work harder to get them over, or you can go to where they're at. right? In this case, we've been talking about LinkedIn a lot, but YouTube in the case of everybody doing shorts and the HubSpot hacks channel, um, really getting out there. Because what we have seen, and for me personally, why I started doing this, right? After seeing it was basically, March timeframe. I had I had been on the admin hug, um,
I
but
remember the
then
cutout, Oscar. It was legendary. Sorry, I just saw a chat.
yeah, Oscar Oblis, welcome in, man. Thanks for leading a great a hug community. Did I just skip over? No, I didn't skip over that. Um, yeah, lots of hug expansion. So appreciate you, Oscar. Uh, and so I kind of unlocked for myself in January. But then I'm like, okay, I need to turn this into business and start focusing on not creating anything and just like, okay, we did this hug. We're supposed to have these, supposed to get this pipeline, supposed to, right?
Yep.
Uh, I keep running into the knowledge gap as I do that, right? Because I'm somebody who wants to focus on everything but marketing and sales hub. Uh, And so finally in March, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to stop complaining about, uh, Kyle being the only one doing this, as far as just showing up every day with quick hit videos, just to start to hit these updates. Like I said, the math didn't work. How do we get more people doing this? And that's what got me, to start creating content on LinkedIn. And that was like, I thought I'd planned some on-demand videos. I had I just couldn't get myself to do some things, knowing that if I do this thing right now, it could be out of date next week. It's very
Yep.
hard to get myself to do that kind of work. I applaud those who can push through that. Um, so I
You'll
just
realize what you probably are getting to is that it's not possible. It's
exactly
not possible to do it all by yourself. It's just I don't care if Kyle can't, if Carson can't, if Deanna, if it's not possible. And so by showing up, you're saying that you intend for it to be possible through a network of other people and enabling them and giving them credence and voice and support. That is my like ethos. So the my like parody stuff and funny clips and skits and all that, and with some useful HubSpot philosophy sprinkled in, is more to say if I can do this and like put myself out there in a funny, humorous way, you can obviously talk about this solutioning thing. It's primarily been in RP because we have an initiative to help enable our thought leaders internally, but I've had people at inbound and I've had people reach out and just say like your story has inspired me to explore this option or to create this thing or to do what so yeah, it's TLDR. No one person is ever going to be able to keep up with this. I don't think two could, but I think the more
right.
people we get in like contributing, being mindful and aware of this stuff, the better, like the faster HubSpot can move. And to Yamini's point, I think it was this inbound, a rising tide lifts all boats. That's what we're trying to do, is lift the giant orange boat that is
Uh,
HubSpot.
yeah, yeah. Um, no, that's well said. And there was something interesting as I was before I started, and I didn't really have a huge strategy. I just knew I needed to start talking about HubSpot, uh, and so like, okay, I'll just start hitting record and going live every day because I can talk about HubSpot. I just um, hard to do the prep, especially when the prep is often what gets in the way of doing things at this cadence because it's really hard to do the webinar style prep. Like you just can't, right? You can't do it because also you're getting wrecked by HubSpot updates as you do that prep, right? Um, and in the best way, of course. We appreciate all the updates. But as I was doing this, I'm like, nobody was disagreeing because I was doing some interviews some feedback stuff with Mark Hans too, like because at the HubSpot Academy was trying to figure this out as
Yep.
well. Like before they launched the external creator program, they did, like they do, they listened to the community, the customers, like what kind of content, like how important is short form, like what would it, had a couple conversations, and I was like, look, I mean, if you guys could just make 10 more Kyles on the
Yeah.
inside, you'd be
Super
golden.
easy. Yeah.
And if we could just have 100 versions of Kyle on the outside of HubSpot,
Yeah.
like we're good, right? Um, so to your point, this is like a team effort and a community effort. And so this is the way I approached it was just like, I don't know exactly how this is going to work. I just need to start talking about stuff that I don't see being talked about like anywhere, like the post sale stuff, like the strategic elements that are being missed in the ecosystem outside of marketing and sales. So the first one I did was like sync properties,
Yep.
like the day that that beta came out, uh, uh, and it was fun just to click through and all the Easter eggs that you find when you're clicking through HubSpot. That exploration mindset, right, was another value of the admin hug. It can be so easy to treat HubSpot like oh, I gotta do it this way, right? And one of the values of HubSpot that people, it's hard to get until you're in it
Yep.
because most other systems don't work this way. Like you can click around and you're not going to bring the system down, right? You're not going to, it's very hard to break it and have it just go down for the whole team, where in other systems, it's actually not that hard
Challenge accepted. Because
sometimes.
yeah, some, if you're me, you can, it's possible to mess some stuff up. But yeah, it's, to your point, you're not going to learn if you're not in there hands on. Like there
Right.
is, there is, like thought, here's why we need this, here's whatever, but then there's actually putting it into practice and making like solid use cases and then iterating on them.
Yeah. And that's like, and I think with AI coming, it's going to be the speed of AI and the ability to get information from it, the speed of HubSpot and the updates it's making. Like if you're not showing and telling, it's very hard. It takes way longer to learn the system and learn the value of should you do that thing or not, right? And it's important to have everybody because we got Kyle and HubSpot in a larger case. Their role is to make sure we know what the product can do, like from a black and white perspective. This is the function. This is what this update means for what you can do inside of HubSpot. Everybody outside of HubSpot, this is how you use it for this industry, for when you're in this role, when you're
Yeah.
in this specific application, right? So, so it's awesome to start seeing this come together. And so I did this for about 90 days by myself, just showing up. And then in July, I yeah, had a group, started building a group of consultants, individual consultants inside of Sprocketeer. Um, and I was like, hey, if you just had to show up once a week, like, and talk about something you love to talk about related to HubSpot, like, who would do that? And I had
Yeah.
about 6 people raise their hand, right? All of a sudden, weeks worth of shows. And what that has turned into um, is, I hit the back button here, like all these people showing up since the summer. Uh, some new faces, some familiar faces like George, but doing an unfamiliar thing like superhuman framework that's coming out, man. It's gonna change the world, like no joke. Um, and this space of just showing up every day and being present and creating the space to talk about things that aren't usually talked about. Like you cannot, there's no way HubSpot can talk about some of this stuff. You can't put this stuff in the academy. If you have a certain positioning as an elite partner, it's going to be might be hard for you to talk about some of this stuff. So it's all like a group effort. And when I first started talking to George about the superhuman framework, he wasn't even thinking about it from a professional perspective. And I was like, yeah, man, let's come on, let's talk about it. And
Yeah.
that unlocked, it's like, oh yeah, all the humans that we're dealing with, like in HubSpot land and things that they're dealing on a daily basis, they got personal stuff too. And like, how do you address one and not the other? Um, so to be able to unlock for a lot of people, like, because I think even you said it after the first time we did a show, it's like, I wasn't sure if this was going to work, man. We didn't prep at all,
I'm never
right?
sure, but I'm more confident now. I don't need to be sure. I need to be present. Um, hey, let's highlight. I know we wanted to do like a top 20. I don't think there's any real accurate way to rank, but I can start naming people. I know you have this list off screen, and if you want to just bring up their LinkedIn page or whatever links, we can start giving some direct shout outs to people in the last 15 minutes. This will be what is there'll be some great clips from this. But I think giving as much of a spotlight, meaningfully as we can to some of these people on this list. And we're going to leave people out. Sorry, there's just too damn many of y'all, which is a great problem to have. Um, but we did try to, I'm not even going to
Yeah,
say stack rank. We just tried to include as many people. Clement had the list that there was people not on that list. There's how many people in Sprocketeer over 5K. I mean, there's a lot of people, which is the best problem that we could. I wouldn't even say it's a problem, but good problems are good problems to have. Um,
yeah.
so I
Since
can
the
start
effort
getting
was
into that.
made,
Yeah.
I need to show this one clip
Yeah, go for it.
that was made specifically for this, and it's a great example because now, like, my initial ask was who would show up once a week, right? Um, and got 12 regular shows now, including this one, which is actually daily, right? Sarah and Danielle have found a way to show up daily for 15 minutes, and they made this clip and just check it out. This is a great example of the kind of content that we're talking about.
They already have been MQL'd. They probably have also already been SQL'd. Like they've moved through the funnel once. How do we do it? And I think a lot of people immediately go, well, we want them to MQL again from the marketing side. So at some point in time, we need, if they've been stale, we no longer want them to be an SQL. We no longer want them to be an MQL. We want them to go back to a lead. Can you please stand on your soapbox, Danielle, and tell us why
Yes.
this is a terrible idea?
I feel like we're inciting panic in everyone because like so many reports when you first get into HubSpot and you start to understand lifecycle stages, you set up all of these reports and dashboards based on how many MQLs you hit in a week, month, whatever. And that's fine until you get to the point where you see these re-MQLs and then you're like, wait, we need them to un-MQL so that they hit my report and get counted in my MQLs so that, marketing gets credit for everything they did. But do not do that. Don't do that, please. I will help you fix your reporting so that you don't have to do that.
Shout out life cycle
And
stages.
yeah, and stay tuned. Testing a new concept right now called "Let's Build Your Dumpster Fire" with Brian Ausen, Danielle, and Matthew Ruxton, highlighting all the don'ts that we might come across every day. And that's really what we hope to add, and we'll get into this list, is like, yes, we need all the content and the how-to content, how to do things the right way, how to do best practices, but creating this space where it's like, let's talk about some of the don'ts so that more people can understand that just because you can do it this way, in HubSpot, thank you, HubSpot, for making it so flexible and 10 ways to get to the same answer, doesn't mean you should do it that way, right? So thanks so much for Danielle for creating that clip, and she's doing a great job with Sarah on their daily Lunchable GTM. So let's hit the list, man.
Let's hit it. Almost, I listen to so much sports radio, almost anticipated like the dun dun, like the background music. But all right, we've talked about Ryan Gunn already. I'll go. We just talked about Danielle, so we're making progress. Here's somebody, Shadab Khan. If you want to bring up his LinkedIn, Shadab is a head of product and playbooks, or lead. What is his actual title? He works at Red Partners. He's brilliant. He is on LinkedIn. He creates a ton of content and responses. Um, we had like these categories for like platform or areas of expertise. I don't know anything that Shadab is not proficient at. He, as part of like a campaign for playbooks, we figured out how to solve net revenue retention within HubSpot, which is a big thing for reporting, obviously. And I mean, he's just beyond brilliant. I've seen several times where Kyle or other people have referenced him as like if they don't know it, let's go ask Shadab what his thoughts. So it's cool to see that. It's cool to help unlock and enable him and get some of his value out there. And obviously I'm biased and I don't care at all because Shadab is great. Shout out to Strawberries, by the way. If you ever want to make Shadab's life, just send him some. I don't know how to even do that, but just send him a strawberry emoji, or if you're thinking of gifting him, strawberries is the way to go for sure.
Yes. Thank you for that shout out. He's one of the first people I recognized doing the product update thing, like making sure it's in LinkedIn too. So great shout out there.
Yeah, good call out. His post formatting of like, what is this? How does it work? Where is it used for? Is very incredibly digestible. So, Shadab, keep going, man. We need more of you. On the list, I put myself on here, just as this is part of the ranking, so way lower down the list. My goal, I'm the demand lead at RP. I am obsessed with getting more people into the ecosystem from outside and enabling people from within to talk about what it is they want to talk about. I make product videos, campaign videos. I am the mayor of Inbound. My list of accomplishments is very short, but the impact is hopefully enough to consider to keep being gainfully employed. One of the cool things that we did this year, I have a video link in the doc that I think would be awesome to go into, which is the original Kyle Jepson Real Admin of Genius. That was like a 20 video series that we did. I've done one for Shadab. I've done one for Kyle, but this is
Should
one
we
of the
play it?
ways to, yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
On paternity leave, the mayor of Inbound presents Real Admin of Genius. Real Admin of Genius. Returning from a 12-month paternity leave, we salute you, Mr. HubSpot Tips and Tricks Inventor. Mr. HubSpot Tips and Tricks Inventor. Your flailing arms and bright orange top hat tell us exactly how excited we should be about sweeping software updates. You know we can't control it. You're still everyone's favorite inbound professor. You just figured a 90-second video was easier to produce daily than a 7-hour certification course. Who has that kind of time anyway? 23,000 people tune in every single day to your LinkedIn page for you to tell them what they should care about. Dopamine for end users. So take a spin on the flywheel of life tonight, Kyle Jepson, because the world would suck a lot more at HubSpot without you. Mr. HubSpot Tips and Tricks Inventor.
So again, insane. If you're 30 or above, that was from obviously a pretty successful I think Budweiser campaign, but people should know about Kyle. So if I have to be insane or over the top, this went correct. So yeah, like that is actually helpful to me to be like, number one, who is this idiot doing this? And two, now I have to go check out Kyle. So I actually think I should bring those back next year because they were.
Yeah, dude. That's what I was gonna say. Like, I remember that. I didn't think about it in terms of preparing what we've been talking about today, and how many of the same things that you hit on. Like, it's easier to make 90-second video than a 7-hour, certification course.
There's
showing up
a
every day,
little bit of
like
truth
that.
in all of those. Yes. So, I mean, but that
Right?
is exactly it. And that, by the way, was not this. I think that was last year. I mean, whenever he returned from,
Right.
what the point is, like, people should be looking. I've done one for people that are not within the org, which I think is that's probably our next year in review, is like not just the community can be outside of company lines. But yeah, that is my value. Enough about me. Let's move on to
Yes.
somebody.
Shout out to Rob Jones for making stuff more accessible.
There we
to
go.
the
Thank you.
community. We're not always talking to super admins, folks. As much as we love the admin group, there's other users that we want to help as well. So
Absolutely. And
thank
there are
you,
people
Rob
that are
Jones.
pre-users and pre-audience that maybe, some sort of recurring impact or recurring value can get them into HubSpot customership, or at least that is the point.
And if I could just since I'm loving this activity, I got, Brian, appreciate that.
Thanks,
Tony
Tony.
mentioning, loves you laughing at your own jokes. There's just so much shit that gets in the way of doing this stuff, right? And one of those things is we're in StreamYard right now. I see a big fat 0 next to the viewer count of live viewers, right? And meanwhile, people are commenting in the threads. So like as much as we want this all to be metrics and like, oh, how's it going to lead to fun, right? Just don't let that stop you. Like there's so many good things to see happening. Like Oscar mentioning that this went crazy inside of HubSpot, right? For those who don't know, that's pretty powerful for the personal brand of Rob Jones at that point, just to connect those dots. So who's next? Who's next on the list?
We can go several ways. I think grouping, just for time's sake, we've shouted out Ryan Gunn. I know Jennifer Nixon she's not AA anymore, but I'd say Connor Jeffers needs to be shouted out. A8 is a technical consulting solutions partner. He has very strong and direct opinions on a lot of things on LinkedIn, which I feel some of them I agree with, some of them I don't, but that's really not the point. Also, like the way in which he presents things and speaks draws attention by being very direct. And obviously
Yes.
A8 is successful. Definitely, I mean,
Also
grouping
leads
happily also. Yeah, so
well,
that was the thought, is like Max and Dax, by the way, I've pitched them, like if they hire anybody else, they have to be a Jax. Like you're going to crush the whole dynamic. So I don't know if there's a Jax, somebody watching this, and you put in an app, don't even know if they're hiring, but that just kind of fits. Max is somebody I would consider a close friend, which is insane just from HubSpot ecosystem standpoint. So Max and Dax are building a bunch of crazy cool stuff at Happily, events.happily. Kind of an RIP moment yesterday with the today's date feature and TikTok today. I think Max posted that, yeah, that's his last rip to the goat was TikTok today with that. But yeah, Max is brilliant. I think he's a former HubSpotter, like SE, I believe, and he can build or solve anything. I know he's more of a dev now and get into that, which is just wild that you have that type of aggregate skill set. And Dax is a 2 times founder, I believe, that has now taken over that. If you're not at least paying attention to Max, Dax, and some of the stuff they're doing, then you don't have a full picture of what's out there, and that I think is important to call attention to.
Yes.
So shout out to all them. I got another one on the list. It's kind of another double, but Cameron Collins, Mark Lerner, and Sprocket Pod. I would say Cameron and Mark need some. They're at 44, 45 episodes now. They talk about really cool and actionable stuff within HubSpot, and they've been recurring for so long. To your point, like I started showing up once a week, and now I have 5 things a week. Because of that, was it once a week they've been doing Sprocket Pod for almost a year, and Cameron is the community manager for Sprocketeer as like the biggest, unofficial or third party community. We're both in Sprocketeer. If you're not in Sprocketeer and want to foster relationships and connections with HubSpot admin, then you need to go join, period. I mean, it's a Slack community, so we can leave that as a link or CTA. But man, just shout out to both of them for running that and kind of taking up the mantle, to your point, because it is needed. And they've had it increasingly, I would say, cooler. Pete, I think, is doing the show today. Pete Roberts from RP. What up, Pete? But they've had people on that I've wanted to see on because they're not admin and they're not directly in HubSpot. Clark Barron, for one example, right? He's in like security, cybersecurity,
Clark
IT.
Barron
He's
was on their show.
yeah,
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, like he's a, I would say, polarizing guy. But they were talking about stuff through his lens of like security marketing, that it requires somebody outside of the ecosystem to give perspective. And so
Yes.
they've been doing a fantastic job there, and helping to enable, people, admins in the Sprocketeer community. So definitely needed
Yes.
to mention.
And doing it in like a more relaxed way, I'll say, because that's where I think, man, it's so easy to forget about how like when the year moves so fast, right?
Yep.
Between me starting the Let's Builds and the admin hug, I was on the Sprocket Pod. Uh, and that's where you create this space for just people to jump in and get invited. And like instead of trying to say, okay, like, oh, what's the size of your audience? Like how many leads are we going to get from this activity? Right? Just creating a space for people to participate and share. Right? I ended up being on a second one just because we're in Sprocketeer. It's like, hey, this person, can't make it today. So does anybody want to like jump on in half hour?
Yeah.
Right? And those some of the best conversations, right? That happen because of that. So definitely appreciate Cameron and Mark.
The
Um,
space and the consistency and familiarity is massively important. Speaking of familiarity, um, we've hit these people. I'm gonna go. I gotta give this guy a shout out. Matt Bolian. He is somebody I've known for too long, I'll say at this point. I've known Matt for a long time. But he's the Super founder. He Super is, if you haven't checked it out, it's pretty awesome. But Matt kind of, he almost has this messianic type of approach to his copy and what he believes, and I've seen it firsthand. The guy is brilliant. He's a West Point grad. He was in, MI. I know whenever he was in the military, but like his job and his mindset is to like predict things. And so whenever RP, whenever that was starting, the goals were insane of like, we're gonna standardize on Sales Hub and all this. And now he's kind of just turned that into something that can help admins quicker. It can help really prioritize and ensure adoption across. I know that there's some people in this chat that are Matt fans also. Deanna's in the chat. But a lot of what they're doing from a thought leadership perspective is pretty awesome. But you're looking at it now. Matt has some pretty polarizingly thoughtful posts. And they're also excellent content creators. Some of the stuff that they do at the org is very creator enablement friendly. And so if you haven't seen Supered, or if you haven't seen somebody from Supered making content, you just haven't been on LinkedIn. Their whole
yeah,
org is pretty bought in.
yeah. And bought in
Also,
as
shout
in
out
a
to the Supered booth at Inbound, by the way, which is pretty phenomenal this year.
yeah, and bought in is an understatement probably. I don't think I've seen a more aligned organization on this strategy, right? On the strategy of teaching, bringing value every day, being visible every day, and everybody, like, man, I could go and talk to Matt about this. Like, it's brilliant, right? It's like your responsibility is creation at the same time as your other, responsibilities, and it's having a huge impact for them. And they're bringing so much value to this community. It's fun to watch for sure.
Yes, would be insane not to mention Steve Bussey, who is one of the co-founders and one of the smartest people I think I've ever met. He's up there with Shadab and Brian Kreutz, and he brilliant dude. Also had Jonas Demetz on this list. If we wanted to switch, I know we're near time. How do we want to approach getting through some more of the list, Chris?
Wrap. I mean, we're gonna be. We knew we wouldn't be able to get to it all. So I think I don't have a hard stop. but if you do, we can definitely start to wrap. I mean, there's so many, right? There's so many that have stepped up, and we've shown app partners, we've shown individuals, we've shown big agencies, we've shown HubSpot, multiple different teams in HubSpot. I saved a post from today from Kieran, like, this is how you do this thing in Claude, right? So it's really everybody coming together, and I think from outside we have the luxury and I'll say the responsibility of talking about the things that people have problems with much more than HubSpot can, right? So duplication, duplicated information in the CRM, problem everywhere. Uh, not only did Jonas create a great product that is available in the app marketplace now, but he's been out there like talking about this problem of how to get to true deduplication, how to make it such less of a burden. So he's
Let's
been,
that's
yeah,
it's worth calling up, or at least comparing or drawing the comparisons with that like niche type of content and focus to people like man, hold on. The name, why is his name escaping me? Uh, Daniel Curran, Austin Birch, Org Chart Hub, stuff like that, right? Like they're happily with some of the very, very specific solutions that exist, and it helps to be a generalist and have a wide understanding because of application, but it also helps to have people that are extremely good at one thing. You know what I mean? That you can go to for very specific use cases and know that they're going to be up to date and they're going to be current. And they're going to know how those types of solutionings work into other things that exist also.
and this post sums it up pretty well. I mean, I think you mentioned, different people starting to create content, right? I spent years as a HubSpot consultant watching teams struggle with duplicates,
Yep.
right? That's all this is. Most of these creators just sharing experiences. This is what I'm seeing. This is how, you might avoid it. This is how you can do it differently. Just sharing expertise. It really doesn't matter how long you've been in the ecosystem, right? Sharing expertise goes so far, and it's been great to see more and more people, start sharing, and hopefully more people, like Tony. Great New Year's resolution here. I want to be on this. We'll assume he meant list next year.
Tony, you were on the list. We had
Yeah,
just a massive list.
yeah.
Speaking of lists, real quick, while I know we're getting close to an end, and I do have a stop, but I wanted to start reading some of the lists, if you don't mind. Daniel Stinson, Stacy Roberts, Ryan Segal, Saran Raj Santhanam, Alexia Petrakos, Devin Shalou, Matthew Zemo, Aurora Clark, Christine Romero, Kyle Jepson, Naomi Evron, Gafar, Will Smith, Caleb King. I could go on. I could, however much more you want me to do this. These are the people that we appreciate for being involved in the community. Let's keep going. Tara Willingham, Frank Ferris, Lizzie Browns, Uri Zalata, Mark Lerner, Tyler Derman, Antoine Diaz, Kyle Lemunion, John Svensson, Lindsey John, Ann McDowell, Cameron Harrow, David Passman, Mads Toff, Ricky Shell, Evelyn Burden. There are that I cannot get to all of this, but as an example of the people that we value, number one on the list for the concept was, let me say, number two was Kyle Jepson as like the big, who's more important? Number one is the community. So from me, the entire reason I wanted to do this with you, Chris, was like, if I'm going to be the mayor of Inbound and if I'm going to be impactful, I need to show up and be more involved specifically with the community. And still not quite there, but that's
You're
my New
there,
Year's
bro.
resolution. Tony, shout out. I'm gonna do more of this and more enablement and more being present and involved. So
Awesome. You're there, bro. Like, and that's the thing. It's hard to. There is so much, right? It's the community is exploding. The user base is exploding. No matter how hard we try, like these algorithms and these places that we have to do it, sometimes they're just not showing us. No matter how much content is out there, no matter how much you think like, oh, I see this person, so everybody else must see this person. Like, nope, doesn't happen. So always err on the side of sharing, sharing, sharing. And, we appreciate it. We appreciate the whole community, and I appreciate this opportunity, with you, Rob, to get to highlight everybody. Look forward to, the recap video that we're doing. It's going to be fun. And, we do want this, to Tony's point, we want there to be a list next year. And there will be. And we're going to keep seeing this grow. And, we hope this was helpful, right? Alexia says, thanks for the shout out, Rob.
Yes, we'll have to make it a 2-hour spectacular next year so we can get all the people in here. But yeah, honored to be here. Chris, thanks for calling me up and letting me join. And everybody have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yeah. As you think about 2025, find those opportunities and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.
Do it.